To the Wednesday, February 18th Town Board Work Session for the Town of Penfield. I will call this meeting to order, and I will ask Deputy Supervisor Teglash to please say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have no minutes to approve this evening, and it looks like there is no one here for public participation and no guests, so we will move right into our action items, the first of which is going to be from Carrie Ivers regarding the pro-housing program.
Thank you, Supervisor. So this is a program that New York State offers to communities. It's pro-housing community. The benefits are several, including the fact that some now state funding streams are predicated on communities having obtained this status. And so wanted to talk to you all about whether or not you'd like to pursue this and authorize the first step, which would be the supervisor sending a letter of intent to the authorized, to HCR, which is the New York State Department that oversees the program. And so then from there, once we've submitted that letter of intent, there's two application or submission requirements. We'll have to do some analysis on our end to determine which path applies to us. So it's based on the number of housing units that have been added over the last 5 years, and there is a formulation and a calculation sheet that we would utilize to determine whether or not we meet the qualification. And so I thought we could talk about that and determine whether the board was in favor of moving forward with seeking this designation. And so I'm not sure if you want me to provide other, it's a requirement for municipalities who want to pursue certain funding streams. So that's a big thing, depending on, New York Forward, Downtown Revitalization Initiative. The ones that jump out is there's whether or not we could qualify for it, but New York Main Street program is something that we would potentially look into. There are requirements associated with New York Main Street in terms of properties meeting certain standards as far as condition, income requirements. So I'm not sure if we'd be eligible, but in order for us to pursue that grant funding, if we were eligible, or if there was an area geographically that could align with that program, we wouldn't be able to apply for it without the pro-housing communities designation. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Mm-hmm. If you're in favor, then we'll prepare the letter for Kevin to submit and then follow the process from there. And we can keep you apprised as to how it's going and what path we're following. And they do have webinars, which they have what they call office hours, so which was, I thought, very helpful. And so what I thought we do after tonight's meeting, based on direction and input, if it's something you want to pursue, Alan Wrights, our building and zoning director, and I would probably participate in one of these office hours so we could figure out which option applies to us. Right. We can have that data ready to go and review that with them to see which one we should be pursuing.
I just wanted to review for a minute more for public education, that if we were to qualify for option one, we would need to go from the letter of intent to filing a zoning map and a zoning code summary. And then we would need to do housing planning and building permit information for the last 5 years. Yeah. And then the statistics that Ms. Ivers was talking about is that in upstate, it would need to be that our housing stock increased by 0.33% over the past year, or 1% over the last 3 years. And so that would be the submission requirements for option 1. Option 2 is more for municipalities that don't make those criteria, which would be the letter of intent, a resolution by the town board saying that we want to be a pro-housing community, then the zoning information and the permitting information. That would be the same as the first option.
Yes, and what's on the screen right now is the sample resolution that New York State provides to the towns or municipalities that want to go with option 2. I don't think there's much leeway in the language that we use. I think we have to sort of copy and paste this resolution into, in filling in our information and the town board's information.
And we are going to be doing our housing survey, so, that will show what our true needs are. But I don't think that we would be surprised to find that we have the same issue that is prevalent across Monroe County. I was at a meeting of supervisors where the county executive spoke, and he pointed out the same thing that a lot of people have been saying, that it seems like there's a lack of housing for seniors who want to downsize and for younger couples or, even singles who are looking to buy their first home. And there's just a historical lack of affordable housing right now for people in, basically the workforce and the senior population.
So, Carrie, you provided great information. I was able to go out to the links, read it, started watching some of the webinars. So what I did is I put together some questions and did the research just so that we could clarify some of this, because anybody watching or comes back to the videos will probably be scrambling to try and figure out what it was. So I'm going to go through these questions just to help clarify what this is about. So the first one, can we clarify for residents, does becoming a pro-housing community override our zoning authority or require us to approve any specific projects?
No, it does not.
Right. So it doesn't take any of that control away from it?
No, it doesn't relegate local land use decision-making to any other organization or agency or at the state level. So it's just, you're essentially committing to increasing housing and, more importantly, affordable housing options.
Right. Does the certification require any specific type of housing, such as apartments versus single-family homes?
No. It's open to a wide variety of housing options.
Just to increase?
Yeah, increase, again, housing in general, and then in particular, affordable housing options across all markets, both lease, rental, and ownership.
Yep, and it actually encourages a variety of housing options.
Correct.
Is there anything in this program that mandates density increases or rezoning?
No.
What specific state funding programs would be ineligible if we don't obtain this designation? So I did go up and look some, and you just mentioned some as well.
Yeah, so the New York Forward program, I'm going to list them all.
Okay.
There's programs that now absolutely require pro-housing as a prerequisite for application. That would be Downtown Revitalization Initiative, New York Forward program, which is through the Department of State, the New York Main Street program, which is through Homes and Community Renewal, Regional Council Capital Fund, Empire State Development. That's a subset of funding. There's a subset of funding that would be ineligible if we're not pro-housing. Market New York. Long Island Investment doesn't apply to us. We're not there. Nor does the Mid-Hudson Momentum Fund. But Public Transportation Modernization Enhancement Program through the DOT, Department of Transportation. And there may be additional, they note in the documentation that there may be other programs that get added to this list.
Right. And last year, we applied for the BRICS grant, and that would have been a nice one. That's the building, recreation, infrastructure, children.
Great something. It was a great acronym.
That's how I remember BRICS, because it was such a good one. It was the building recreational infrastructure for community, kids, and seniors. And that would have been a great one, but again, that had the designation, wanted the pro-housing. Just a couple more.
Yeah.
Would obtaining the certification increase our ability to secure outside for
Yes.
infrastructure, correct? What exactly are we submitting to the state? Is it simply zoning maps and permit data we already maintain?
It is. These are records that we already have, and we have to provide, the data that we're supplying to the state is already data that we supply to other agencies. DOS we have annual reports that we issue for the issuance of building permits and applications reviewed.
Okay. And regardless of this designation, do we still retain full authority to require traffic studies, seeker review, stormwater compliance, and infrastructure analysis?
Yes, that is correct. So all the same level of review that is required now, either because of state law requirements and/or because of local regulatory and/or procedural requirements, would still be intact.
Okay. If we adopt the resolution we talked about, it's a statement of values. As I understand it, it's a statement of values versus a binding commitment to go after specific development.
Correct.
Okay. And how difficult is the administrative, because this is every year, we have to get recertified.
Yeah.
Is that a burdensome?
I don't think it's burdensome. I think these are kinds of records that we maintain for other purposes and have to submit to other agencies, so I don't think it's too far. It's us running a query in our system, and with the new system that we're going to have, it's going to be even easier. So I think it won't be a burden for the departments have to do the reporting.
Okay. And are our neighboring municipalities pursuing this certification? And if it's so, what would it mean if Penfield opted out?
I'm sorry, repeat that last part.
So are our neighbors going after this?
Other communities already have the designation. Please don't ask me to repeat them all.
I think it's like the Town of Webster, Fairport.
Fairport, I think Brighton has it. Does it Rondequoit have it? Or in pursuing it?
We were the first town in Monarch County to have it, yes.
Oh, okay. So I teed that up nicely.
Yes, that was very nice.
And I
So,
believe Parenton is
I think-
pursuing it now.
Yeah, I think, I haven't checked in recently. We have a little informal email chain among various planners, community development folks in that realm, and I haven't checked in to see what the status is, but my guess would be most are either in the process of considering it, or they're in the middle of pursuing it, or they already have it. So I think we'd be joining good company.
Okay, and the last thing I had was, this supports housing growth, includes options for seniors and young families.
Correct, for sure.
Good. Thank you.
Welcome.
I guess my 2 cents would be, having been intimately familiar with applying for it and being a community that's been redesignated a couple times, I don't see a reason why we wouldn't do it. We're already doing the work anyways. The reward is that we would be eligible for grant funding programs that we would want to take advantage of, the Bricks one being a great example. That would have been a huge boon to what we're looking to do, and we weren't even able to do it because we weren't a pro-housing community. And again, much like the questions you've asked, we're already doing the work that's required, so just getting the designation seems like, I would think, a slam dunk at this point.
No, very good points. And I did go and I looked up to say, okay, but so why is New York doing it? What's in it for the state? Why do this? And I understand they're trying to say, okay, if we're offering these incentives, we want this. And so the goals, it looked like to me, were to increase housing supply statewide. Is that the
Yes.
entire state, we know, has issues, but they don't have a good line of sight to all the details. Would that be accurate to say? So this helps them get the details. Support statewide economy and workforce, standardize how they go about things, improve transparency for residents, and then better target state policy and funding so that they know the best ways to go after and provide grants. So I think it's a good approach to do it. I just wanted to make sure that, you looked at the good, the bad, the ugly, and if it was ugly, did we see it? But I didn't see any big negatives.
I think your questions are extremely valuable to answer, because a lot of the negative things I hear out in the community with this designation is all, we're going to have to do X, Y, or Z, and it's going to be a detriment to the town. And the reality is it's not.
Right.
It doesn't tie us to anything specific in terms of action items. It's really just, as you said, a tracking mechanism and a gateway to grant funding,
Open
so
doors.
that the state can further its goal of increasing the housing stock,
Good.
which, as you mentioned, is obviously a concern at the county and the state level.
Yes.
Yeah. I support moving forward.
Me too.
Me too. Okay.
Do you need anything?
I would say, well, you know what, I think maybe just a roll call vote, just to solidify, because I don't think we need a resolution to allow the supervisor to submit the intent. If we, depending on what option we need, then I can come back to you and tell you we do need a resolution. If that's the case, if we do end up needing to go through option 2, and if we don't need that, then I'll just update you at a future work session meeting.
I mean, ultimately, you'll need a resolution, but I mean, for the purposes of starting this off,
Yeah.
you know, I
So-
think, I still would think a roll call, like a resolution to authorize or direct the supervisor to send the letter of intent.
And so you want to do that?
I
And
do it by motion.
by motion or, by a roll call vote?
Yeah, by roll
Okay.
call vote.
Okay, perfect.
So if I make a motion to authorize the supervisor to move forward with the pro-housing designation,
I will second that.
Okay, vote. Barry?
Aye.
Dean?
aye.
Getz?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Teglash?
Aye.
All aye.
All right. Thank you, Carrie.
Good,
Thank
yeah,
you.
great, this is great, Carrie.
Okay, next we'll move into informational items, and the first one is Town Court Vehicle and Traffic Matters, and Councilperson Getz.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and thank you for the time. I'm going to apologize a bit in advance because I'm going to try to be as thorough as possible, but also I understand time moves quickly. So as people may recall, and just for purposes of our community members out there, in late October of 2025, our previous town supervisor announced to the media that our town would be utilizing our town attorney to operate in doing vehicle and traffic prosecutions. There have been a number of questions raised and issues as to the status of this announcement and about the use of the town attorney to prosecute the vehicle and traffic matters in our town. In order to let our community know we're working on this issue, I thought it would be important to provide some information and then to get feedback from board members as to next steps. First, some background. In Monroe County, the District Attorney's Office has the duty to prosecute the town vehicle and traffic matters throughout the county. This has been the practice in our town for decades. There are many solid policy reasons to have the District Attorney's Office handle these matters, including cost considerations, logistics with law enforcement, and communications with, for example, the Sheriff's Department and state police. In Monroe County, there are 3 municipalities that use their own prosecutors, if you will. The City of Rochester, which has an entire bureau assigned to this, the Town of Greece, and the Town of Getz. I note that both the Town of Getz and the Town of Greece have their own municipal police departments. And I can get into why that's an important issue if people want to ask any questions about it as well. But ultimately, there's a unified court with the town, so to speak, which makes the logistics a little easier. For some time, many of the vehicle and traffic cases in our county have been backlogged. This is a county-wide problem. This is just not something that the town of Penfield is dealing with. I note that this backlog includes problems in the town of Greece and in the city of Rochester. I unfortunately could not get all the data for Getz. Getz has approximately 30,000 people, but I don't have the information. I'm working on that. While there are many factors that create this problem, one of the key components is that the district attorney's office has a shortage of assistant district attorneys to handle these. Of note, most municipalities are having problems keeping folks employed. And what I mean by that, just as an example, in the city of Rochester, the City Corporation Council is looking for folks. So this is not, again, something unique. And indeed, there's an attorney shortage, which
Private practice
we
is
will,
also.
yeah, my friend to my right will vouch for me on that. Understandably, our town justices have raised concerns about the time and processing of these matters because of the backlog. At this time, each of our town justices has a vehicle and traffic court trial date every other month. And as I mentioned before, in late October, it's my understanding that our previous town supervisor had some conversations with Justice Mully and folks in the court about utilizing our town attorney. Unfortunately, my understanding is also that the announcement and plan was not vetted with the town board at the time, nor was it included in any budgetary discussions. I note that the Monroe County District Attorney's Office is obligated to do these prosecutions, and it would mean it's no extra cost to the town.
As it is right now.
As it is right now, correct. Thank you, Linda. It's my understanding also that it may have been mistakenly assumed that the town would be able to use some of this in a revenue-generating fashion. That can't be done. And I won't get into all the details, but it's not a proper way of handling the courts for many reasons. And while I have no doubt that our town attorney would be excellent at the work, it would be costly to do this. I note, again, as well, that there would be significant logistics and processing issues to start this up. At some point, we had some people ask questions about this, and I had an opportunity to speak not only with Justice Mully about this in a fair amount of detail, and also to Peter. I've also had an opportunity to speak with our District Attorney, Brian Green, about this. He is aware of the problems as well as a countywide issue. We've had a lot of good, positive discussions, admittedly not recently, but we're talking for next steps. And it's my understanding that the District Attorney's Office is working on a pilot project in which they would have part-time assistant district attorneys working strictly on vehicle and traffic cases. And it's my understanding that there would be some town courts that would be targeted. And as I mentioned a moment ago, I've not had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Green about this issue lately, but I do understand that this is proceeding. And I hope to speak with Mr. Green shortly and other members of the District Attorney's Office. From speaking with Justice Mully, the court fully supports this idea. It would help with backlogs, would help with getting a more thorough review of the cases, and get people their justice in a timely fashion. It's my understanding as well that should the board be okay with this, that Justice Mully and Justice Metzler would not only support this project, but would offer letters of support to the District Attorney's Office to have us be part of this pilot project. Again, I don't know if this would need a vote because it's just continuing the District Attorney's Office and doing the work. It's just getting us into the queue, if you will. And I'll say, since our town has been in the lead for this, I'm hoping we can have a little extra nudge from Mr. Green, who may or may not be listening right now. But just to get an idea as to, we're here, we'll support this, we'll move forward with it. The reason I wanted to do this status report was, again, just to keep the board informed, and importantly, let our community know, A, we take this very seriously, B, we're coming up with a solution that I believe would be more cost-effective, be more efficient, and allow for the matters to proceed in a way that is equitable to everybody who comes into our courts. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'll certainly do my best to answer them.
I just had a couple. You referenced the previous supervisor's announcement about the town handling via the town attorney in October, I believe it was. Since there was no resolution, did any action ever actually take place, or are we just defaulting to what's always been with using the district attorney's office to?
Good question. My understanding is there was no resolution, there's been no action. The district attorney's office is still handling traffic prosecutions in our town.
There were discussions, but the town board itself did not act on any resolution during that period of time.
So no changes actually happened, and
That's
no changes
correct.
were foreseen to happen without an action.
So we got as far as I was talking to the sheriff's office about sharing information, because that would be new to us and new to them, because typically they share that through the district attorney's office. They don't share it with private attorneys. We'd have to be appointed as special assistant district attorneys for that matter. We already are for code enforcement, but I mean, code enforcement, we can do all that. Traffic is, it would require a lot more coordination with both the sheriff and the state police. So I did speak with people in the DA's office, and like I said, the sheriff and the courts about that. But I mean, my intention would have been to have one of my younger colleagues do that work, but that still would require a spin up of that, and that would have to be a cost that would be done hourly, so that would be something that the town would pay for above and beyond the retainer, because you would never know how many hours it would take.
And so theoretically, right now, it doesn't cost the taxpayer anything additional to have the district attorney's office provide this service that they're obligated to provide. However, it would cost additional money to have the town prosecute it via the town's attorney. And then you kind of insinuated that this is not a fee-generating business or process. So would we ever even be able to recoup those costs, or would this,
Most likely not, no. And I have full faith in Peter, but again, this is, as you just said, the district attorney's office does it, and it does not cost the town anything extra, whereas this would, and understandably so. It's a lot of time. It's time-consuming, not just to be in court, but to prepare for any trials, to work through the dispositions. It takes a lot of time. It just does.
Theoretically, while I understand that procedurally this could cut down on a backlog, having our own internal attorney do it, theoretically, not really knowing because we haven't really spun it up, we would never recoup the costs associated with this. We wouldn't generate the additional fees necessary to cover the hourly costs it would require. So we would be needing to do a budget amendment and theoretically a tax increase to provide this service.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
I would just like to make a point of clarification as well. It was announced in October that this was taking place. It also was reiterated later, after I was elected supervisor, that this was going to commence in January. There was never any intention on my part of this commencing in January. I suspected it was not good stewardship of the taxpayers' dollars. So it was completely unsupported in any way that this was going to commence in January. I just wanted to have that on the record.
Yeah, and if I can follow up, Kevin, briefly on that, because you make a good point, and this is, the logistics alone would not have allowed that, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, anything can be done if you put enough personnel hours into it, but the logistics alone, I just don't see how it could have been done and really make it fair to everybody involved, the courts, the town attorney, even the district attorney's office. So, yeah, it's unfortunate we're having this conversation, but as a result, we're moving forward with trying to make things better in a way that continues the use of the district attorney's office.
Just one other point of clarity from, you mentioned code enforcement matters. The district attorney's office, are they obligated to provide that service if we don't, or is that something that we have always had to provide and are required to provide statutorily?
That's a good question. I think technically they probably are obligated to enforce those, but I don't know of any town where that takes place. Code enforcement is very different from town to town because every town has their own code. And by code, I'm really mostly referring to the zoning code and property maintenance code. And so our office and the predecessor, in this position, have always provided the code enforcement work for the town because it's really in our interest to make sure that that gets enforced right. Typically, the assistant district attorneys, they have no knowledge of what is in the code or where to find it.
Right.
So.
And if I can, just to follow up on what Peter just said, historically speaking, in the county, the towns, I believe, and I'm fairly certain that every town uses its own code enforcement officer and uses its own town prosecutor, town attorney to handle those cases, again, for good reason. Vehicle and traffic is different in many different ways because it's quasi-criminal.
That's right. It is different. Even though there's an aspect of the procedures that, I would say is quasi-criminal in the code enforcement sense, it's they're typically, I think, offenses or violations where it's lower stakes, I guess I would say.
I would venture a guess also that the volume of vehicle and traffic is significantly higher than town code-related issues, so.
Yeah.
I would believe that to be true. I suspect because the code enforcement does not have a high volume.
Right. Okay.
So my question has to do with this pilot program. So this is where I got confused. The pilot program would be, if I understood you correctly, that would be within the DA's office to start to handle these issues through the DA's office.
Correct.
And then if that were the case, what would that do for the reasoning behind having the town attorney do the prosecuting?
Good question, Catherine. At the end of the day, I had conversations with Mr. Green about this problem and about our specific issue, and we had some conversations in which we got our brains together and said, hey, what could work? Because the district attorney's office has the money available already. They have people, they're looking, they're short. I think they're short-staffed they have 20 attorneys short right now, which
yeah.
is really bad.
Yeah.
That said, there are a number, what I'll call more seasoned attorneys, who would be willing to take on these types of matters as a part-time position for many different reasons, that have the ability to do this and can, and by the way, this isn't something that would be novel. It's been done in other counties before. So that's the whole idea, is what can we do as a town to help the district attorney's office
Yeah.
do the work for our town? And it's just friendly talk. It has nothing
Right.
to do with, as opposed to what was proposed earlier, this is a way to solve a problem that
And then
in
it
my
kinda-
mind makes better sense.
Right, and it keeps everyone in the lane they're already in.
Right.
Yeah.
And-
And it wouldn't cost the town additional money.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
So to clarify, there are 3 options for handling vehicle and traffic case in Penfield. How we're doing it today, status quo, the way it's been done for years within Penfield. The second was the option that the former supervisor presented to say that we were going to do, where we would have our own town attorney or staff from our town attorney's office prosecute all vehicle and traffic cases. The third option is this pilot program. And when you spoke to our justices, they were in support of the pilot program.
That's my understanding from Justice Muller,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
In fact, they said they'd send letters.
Okay, understood. So it sounds like everything we've discussed, from a cost efficiency and even a time efficiency, that if this pilot program can get going, that could be the better alternative
Yeah.
to what we're doing today.
Yeah.
I believe that it would be.
Okay.
And that's why we want to get in
More.
early
Okay.
to this idea and show why we would be a good town to have this occurring.
All right. But the other option, which would require our town attorney, someone from his staff, to prosecute vehicle and traffic cases in the town of Penfield, would cost us money. Would it save any efficiencies in time?
I
Tough to-
can't, good question, Linda. Candidly, I don't believe so.
Okay.
And there's many reasons why, but ultimately, first, there's the startup for our town. There's all of the beginning. If anything, it might backlog things more, because in order to get into full swing, it would take time to get that rolling. And even if there was a smooth transition, which I have no doubt that could be handled, it still takes time to get that.
Right. And if it saved time, it would be to the benefit of the person who is charged.
To the benefit of everybody, correct.
Right, because from a resident perspective, the fact that these cases are going through quickly, I don't know that there's a direct benefit to residents. I can see a direct benefit to the individual who's facing a charge and waiting to get court time.
I don't know that there's an issue with court time, because the judges have, there is a traffic calendar every month.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So
But the prosecution might not be.
I think if they wanted a trial, that's where it would
Okay,
be
gotcha.
backlog.
Trials have been the bigger backlog, correct. Because, and just by way of background, it's actually a good, quick segue. The Monroe County District Attorney's Office already has online a way to do plea bargaining online. The real issue comes down to the trials, when people are demanding trials, or if there's a concern by the court as to what happened in a particular case. One to use a terrible slang term, some folks might be frequent flyers, and what I mean by that is they're suddenly getting multiple vehicle and traffic charges for speeding, for example, and the court is kind of like, I've seen enough, I'm not going to allow this type of plea, which means that there's no other choice other than a trial, and that can backlog things. And I get the court's desire to do, we all feel that way. And to your point, Linda, I'm not sure what the percentages are of people in our community that actually get vehicle and traffic tickets, but if there's any time that our community members are going to be in our town court, it could be for vehicle and traffic.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's going to cost money. That option, number 2 option of having our town attorney / staff office do it would cost us money and would not generate revenue. So it was a pure cost.
There would be a cost.
Okay.
There's no, you cannot generating money from the courts, that's just not proper policy.
Okay.
So one of the things, another benefit of the pilot program is that the courts, as John was saying, with the turnover or the frequent flyers, with the turnover of the young DAs that cycle through, there is a tendency not to know these frequent flyers and then offer deals that the judge wouldn't be willing to agree to. And then so if there's more stability with somebody who's more seasoned, I think that's another benefit too.
Yes, thank you, Pete. I agree.
Yeah. And so what do we need to try and continue with the pilot program? 'Cause-
Well, and then, Peter, I'll defer to you on this. I don't think we need a vote on this, but if everybody's okay, again, this is informational for everybody, but if folks are okay, I will get in touch tomorrow with Justice Mully, get the letters from him and Justice Metzler, and have more conversations with Mr. Green, with Brian about this to get us hopefully there. And I have a way of hopefully nudging people along in a polite way.
Do you feel that a letter from the Supervisor's Office of Support would be helpful as well?
I think it would not hurt.
Okay, because I could do that if everyone's in agreement with that.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, very good. That's good, thank you.
All right.
Does the DA believe he has potential people that would step into that type of role?
Good question, Pete. I think so. I think
Okay,
there's
good.
some people out there, and again, it's one of these situations where the question is numbers, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'll talk with Mr. Green more about that, see where it's at. And one of the things I'm hopeful to do is talk to some of our colleagues who may have an interest in this as well, and just say, hey, I'm just giving you this information. That's all it is informational. It's not anything else. But I think that there are a number of people in our legal community that would like to do this because they like to help, they're good at it, and they've got the time. Great.
Yeah.
Councilmember Getz, thank you for your work on this. I really appreciate it. I think that this is a great solution to the issue and will, do well by the taxpayers, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, John.
We like no cost.
Okay, so moving on, next is the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. So Ms. Ivers is going to address that as well.
Yes, so, and just so everybody's aware, Mark is happily on vacation this week, which is why he's not joining me here at the work session. So the town has continually supported the National Wildfire Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge. A resolution memorializing this commitment is going to be added to the next legislative session. Anytime, certainly if anybody wants to object and stop me from preparing that, we will. I think you'll have a fight on your hands because the EECC strongly encourages us to continue.
As does their board liaison.
Yes, wonderful. And so it's just committing to continuing the same steps that we've been following to demonstrate our commitment. It's a proclamation on monarchs and pollinators. We typically tie that in with our Arbor Day celebration, revising the mowing programs, and supporting a milkweed collection and propagation effort. So EECC strongly supports and encourages wanted just to talk to you about it. We would put it on an action item, but except it felt like very repetitive, and we didn't think you'd object to having a resolution prepared for next session.
Sounds good.
So just an informational item. We
Great.
continue to support the butterflies, and if we didn't, we'd be in trouble.
Yes.
That's good.
Were there any questions on that at all? All right, then we will move on from milkweed to cannabis. So next, we're going to talk about changes to cannabis retail dispensary conditional use permit regulations.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the lead on this and certainly invite Peter to jump in. So the town has on the books conditional use regulations in Chapter 250-13.12, specific to the conditional use permit for cannabis retail dispensary. That was put on the books a couple of years ago. The town had opted in a few years prior to that. And then when it started to look like the state was going to start issuing licenses, the town realized it didn't have any really regulations pertaining to that particular use. Determined that it was similar to a restaurant needing a conditional use permit, it seemed reasonable that a cannabis retail dispensary might also as well. Over the last couple of years, there have been some new additional state law or regulation changes at the state level, and also some interpretation of the New York State cannabis law that leads us to think that some of our provisions for the conditional use permit may not be in conformance. And so in sharing that information with Kevin, wanted to bring it to the town board to discuss, to say, if our regulations are outside the parameters of what the state says we can and have as far as requirements, particularly related to minimum distances, that we should bring our code into compliance. So working with Peter, we are going to prepare potentially, if the, a proposed local law to make amendments to our existing conditional use regulations for this particular use, that will bring us into conformance with state law and still preserve our right to have conditional use parameters that get visited.
So there's a handful of things in our code that would need to be tweaked to bring them into compliance with what the state statutes require. There's an express preemption provision under the cannabis law, section 131. And that preempts everything except for certain time, manner, place limitations that can be imposed. But then they can't be, I forget the language, like unreasonably impracticable or something like that, to the opinion of the Cannabis Control Board. And so the regulations were issued after our code was enacted, and those regulations say they have the specific limits, I think, how far you can be from a place of worship or a school. And then the code, the regulations also add another, like a community youth facility or something, is another thing that we don't have in our code that we ought to make sure we address. And then more recently, there were some amendments to the statute that says how you measure the distance. Our code, I believe, says it's from property line to property line. Some codes in other towns are like structure to structure or structure to property line, and the statute was amended to say that you run it from the center of the doorway to the center of the doorway. That's how you measure it, which causes the location to be closer. And so we need to, I think, amend our provisions so that a court doesn't do it for us, and we want to make sure that we have what we think is appropriate in there, because there's another provision in our code that says it allows it in general business or a light industrial zone.
And that was something that I wanted to bring up.
And then
stealing
our
my thunder,
code
but
says
that's
something about, I'm only going to talk about one part of that, and then I'll turn it back over to you. Like, it says it has to be 500 feet away from a residential zoning district. That's unique to our code. I would argue that that is not preempted and that we should keep that. So I've already given Kevin and Carrie my thoughts on what needs to be adjusted, and then whether or not we want to add locations, that's another question.
Yes. So right now, the two districts where this conditional use permit can be issued is general business and limited industrial. And so one of the things to potentially consider is adding limited business as another potential location, because that's another place where retail is allowed. So you can have a liquor, permitted by right, a liquor store is allowed by right, convenience store that sells alcohol is permitted by right in that district. And I think from an interpretation standpoint, I think the state is envisioning cannabis retail dispensary in the same vein in terms of retail. I think the other thing maybe to say is that when these regulations were first enacted, there were no legal dispensaries open yet. And I think it was very much oh my gosh, what's happening, what's coming? And I think as we look around our town, every neighboring town across the county and all through the Finger Lakes, stores are open. There's been no issues, no security concerns. If anything, it's negating illegal operations and illegal sales, which would be welcome. So I think that's part of it. So whether the town board wants to add the additional district, that's another thing for discussion.
And I believe that when this first came into play, that the intent was to have it in limited industrial general business and a limited business. And then, people were getting nervous. They didn't really know what was going to happen. But, now that these dispensaries have become more prevalent, there's not a lot of issues. I think it would be wise to revisit that because, like you said, liquor stores are allowed there, and the state does very much view those in the same vein now, so something to definitely consider.
I guess removing the discussion point of considering additional zoning districts, because I think that's a whole separate issue that I'd like to come back to. Basically, statutorily, we're required to look at this code and make certain changes because they would be preempted by the state changes.
That's correct. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to come back around to give you another example of why we need to do it. I know in another town, there's a potential applicant that has come in and said, you know what, we don't think your code applies, we're just going to come in, And so we don't want that to happen. We want our code to be narrowly tailored to meet the requirements of the statute, and we don't want to have to sue somebody or risk having our code be invalidated.
To Mr. Attorney's point, I think keeping the residential component in our code, since it's not specifically called out, is a good thing. I would certainly support keeping that. As to discussing an increase in the applicable zoning districts, I'm not prepared to have that discussion tonight. I would like to see some more data and really have a smart conversation about it as opposed to just kind of off the cuff.
There are three, just so in looking at our code, there are really only three things that need to be changed. We call out straight line from the nearest boundary line, so that's got to be changed. We have 1,000 feet is the limit between a school and a facility, and 1,500 feet between dispensaries. So those are all preempted. So I could prepare a local law that addresses those and corrects those for the next, we can have that considered at the next legislative session.
And does every cannabis retail dispensary require a special use permit?
In our town,
In our
yes.
town, right?
Conditional use permit,
Okay,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, one cannot open legally without obtaining.
Whereas a liquor store does not require
Liquor store
that.
does not. We're not suggesting that it not be a conditional use permit.
Right,
no.
there's other things in the code, and I agree with what Councilman Lang said, that I think this requires a lot more discussion of looking at, do we open it up to limited business? But I think even if we did open it up to limited business, there are still more regulations on the CRD than there are on liquor stores.
Correct.
In looking at it. So I'm assuming there's three things there. The code that we really need to change per your recommendations. 2, do we open it up to limited business? And 3, how does that affect these unique, it's requirements, a special use permit versus no special use. So I basically, it does require much more conversation, I think.
So one argument that people could make is that our code is too restrictive and it effectively doesn't allow for dispensaries, right?
Based on the distances and what's
And
zoned.
what, like if it's zoned out, basically. However, I would dispute that argument because there is a dispensary that opened in Penfield, so.
Couple, right?
At least one.
Only one is-
There are some, I mean, a whole other issue is I believe there are still some, possibly some unlawful ones. But
Potentially, and that's something that we continue to monitor and work with Monroe County Sheriff's Office on.
Okay.
they've been a lot better about that, where they come in and close
And the
it down.
Office of Cannabis Management is the one who's in charge with enforcing it.
So do we tackle these as two separate changes, or what do we need to do to
That's
move?
up to the board. I mean,
Okay.
if you want to, it's going to require a local law
Right,
to make the amendments that are needed to conform with New York State. It would also require a local law to amend the zoning
zoning.
districts where it's a conditionally permitted use. So I would leave that to you all to decide if that's something you want to continue the conversation, and then we can bring it in as one. Because if you make a change to the local law and decide, oh, wait a minute, we do want to do limited business, we have to repost the public hearing anyway and conduct a second public hearing because it's a substantial change.
it's the same law that we would be changing.
But there's no reason, there's no reason that requires you to do it all at once. You could break them apart. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a problem at all.
You can
I
do
guess-
it separately or together.
In terms of timing, is there any sort of, I don't know, like warm-up period for these changes to state law, or did they go into effect like yesterday?
They are effective. The governor just signed the modification to the distance, but the regs have been in effect since maybe 2023, so.
So
on the
realistically, we're
distance.
kind of behind the eight ball at this point with those to
Yeah.
comply with
Yeah.
and not put the town in a liability negative position.
Right. I would recommend taking care of those in the very near future.
I would agree to that.
And the fact that there's already at least one dispensary in town, I'm less concerned about expanding the area where they could operate at this time.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to having that discussion. Just right now, I don't think we're in a position where we need to rush that. I think we should really look at that a little bit more closely. But the stuff that we need to change, I think we have no choice.
Yep. And my intent was not to rush it. It actually was to, for efficiency's sake, while we're dealing with one, to deal with the other. But since, basically we're out of compliance, so we might as well get ourselves into compliance, and then we can.
Allegedly.
Well, we don't want to admit that.
Potentially.
Somebody would argue that we are. Have we had anybody come in and say, hey, your code is too overly restrictive in any kind of serious way? And maybe we shouldn't talk about this, and maybe we'll talk about it offline.
No, to be honest, people, when they'll say, oh, I'm looking at this location for a CRD, and I'm like, oh, unfortunately, that zoning is not, that's not the zoning you need for that location. There's only 2 districts. And they're like, oh, okay. Then they'll move on. So there hasn't been anybody who's, at this point, threatened to take action or to pursue a variance through the zoning board or any of that, so.
Early on, I had developers' attorneys contact me about the distance requirements, and even though we have these greater distance requirements, they didn't say they were going to challenge them based on preemption grounds, and I don't know if that maybe was at the time where it wasn't clear that that was going to be preempted or not, but nobody pushed back on that at that time. But I'm concerned now that they're proliferating, that this is going to be an issue soon.
Right. And we can certainly prepare the local law just to address the conformity items that need to be addressed. And then with respect to discussion of locations, we can prepare, and we had done so previously, some spatial analysis so you can get a sense of what distances requirements would look like and where that might allow or not allow additional CRD locations, if that's helpful for discussion. Because at this point, if there's other districts you wanted to consider or not consider, you might want to have it.
No, it does require further conversation. If we can do them separately, it makes sense.
And I think something like that would help significantly, just being able to see it.
When you look at the map,
There's a liquor store.
the LB and the GB is very similar in how often it touches residential, for example. So
Yeah, from
But
a,
I think you got to look at a map and kind of,
yeah, we can prepare mapping that shows that.
and you're going to want to see that extra with our code where we have the line. It's got to be, I don't know, 500 feet.
Yep.
Something like, I think you need to see that too, so you get a better sense of what properties are impacted.
Okay, so to clarify, the next step is?
Preparing, staff will prepare and town attorney will prepare a draft local law that you can introduce at an upcoming meeting. So similar to the introduction for the assessment, you'll just introduce it at an upcoming meeting. And then public hearing will be set for the next available legislative meeting, and it'll be posted. So we can potentially prepare that in advance of the March legislative meeting, so it's ready for introduction, and then it can be set for the April legislative meeting for a public hearing.
Okay. Is there anything further on that topic?
Very good.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. And now we'll move on to town project updates.
Yeah, I'm just going to give a quick sort of run through. Normally, this is the Mark and Carrie show portion of the meeting, but he's not here. So DPW is, they are, if they haven't already done so, they're moving furniture into the new facility, and that's very exciting. I believe furniture was going in the last couple of weeks. I think with all the snow we've had, I don't know if the people have moved in, but the furniture is there. Alpheus Clark House and Lodge project continues to move along very nicely, and it's on schedule right now. They're doing, beam work on the ceilings, and they're doing tile in the bathroom, and they're going to start refinishing flooring in the next few weeks. So that's moving. It's going from a sort of a shell to more and more of a finished product as we go along. The LaSalle's Landing comfort station, comfort facility, that is all set. We were waiting the DEC permit that's now been issued. We already conducted the pre-con meeting for that. So whenever the contractor's ready to start putting the foundation piers into the ground is when things are going to start to kick off. You'll know what's happening because construction, fencing, and staging will be in place. And so that's moving along nicely. And then we've got we've got a couple of planning projects that are underway. We've got next Tuesday, February 24th, there's the Active Transportation Open House that's going to be held at the Community Center from 5 to 7 p.m. This is an open session with boards and information. Our members of our consultant team will be on hand. Members of town staff will be there as well. It's really meant to be a drop-in, come check it out, ask questions, offer feedback on ideas and analysis that have been shared on various boards. Very interactive. And then the next public engagement opportunity is going to be for Penfield Forward to tomorrow's town spaces. That's sort of the community engagement component, identifying future facility priorities for the town. That's going to be held Monday, March 2nd. That'll start at 5:30 with a brief presentation, and then it'll go into sort of a gallery-style meeting with boards and stations as well. So we've got a lot of fun and exciting things happening right now. And an active transportation plan, I think that's forgive me, the climate action plan is, they just had their staff kickoff meeting with the consultant team, so they're just beginning, and I know that there'll be more information to share as data is collected for that project. And as a reminder, that climate action plan is phase 1, which is focusing on town operations, town facilities, and fleet, so more to come on that one.
Great. Were there any questions on any of that?
No, do you want to share the information about the communication survey? Just
Oh, yes.
to reshare that?
Oh, yes, there is a communication survey that is out that people can take. What we want to know is we want to know how people are being communicated with in the public, how they prefer to be communicated with. One of the top priorities that I have is to ensure that we have maximum communication between the town hall and the residents. So this is a way to find out basically the current state so that we know how we can improve. So, I would encourage residents to please take this survey because it'll give us very valuable information.
And there is a link from the main page of the town's website, so penfieldny.gov.
How long is it open?
I believe it's open until March 1st.
Okay.
There it says, right on the headline.
There it is. And once we have that and reviewed it, that's something we'll share with the public, with residents, right?
Yep.
I was asked that the other day. So.
That's right on the homepage. So if you scroll down past our Supervisor Barry's note, then you'll see a couple of links, and that's the one in the center. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions on any of that?
No.
Okay, I believe there are no held items and no old business. Is there any new business? Okay, our next work session meeting is going to be February 25th. What we're going to be doing now is I'm going to be adjourning the work session, and then we're going to go into a special legislative meeting. So I will adjourn the work session at 7:30, and I will call the special legislative meeting to order.
Do we need a break for downstairs? What's that?
No,
We're
they're
good?
Okay.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right, thanks. So there's no communications and announcements. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Any petitions? Okay, then we can move right into the resolutions by function. So I'll turn that over to Madam Clerk.
Yes, so this is an appointment to a vacant position with DPW.
I'll move as written.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
I have Barry,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Getz,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Teglash.
Aye.
All aye. Appointment to the planning board.
Moved as written.
Second.
I just want to make one clarification. Sometimes our terms are off, so this is two appointments to the planning board. One is for this year, and then the other is for 26 to 27. So I just wanted to point that out, and we wound up having two excellent choices, and there were many people who expressed interest in our boards this cycle, and I am very grateful for that. And I always encourage the public to please think about getting involved in our boards and committees. It's definitely needed, and we very much appreciate that. So,
And Kevin, I would agree. I'd like, just on behalf of everybody, I know we're very thankful that we have such a great group of people in our community, and I think we're thankful for everybody who put their name out and applied. We had a lot of great choices, and these folks, I think, will really step up.
yep, great.
Okay, vote, Barry,
Aye.
Dean,
Aye.
Getz,
Aye.
Lang,
Aye.
Teglash.
Aye.
All aye. Appointment to Historic Preservation Board.
Moved as written, and I will echo the supervisor's comments. These are a potpourri of different terms to fulfill previous vacancies or a full term. I will say, again, a spectacular qualified group here, diverse background that really highlights historic preservation work and experience, so we're really excited about this group as well.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Barry,
Aye.
Dean.
Aye.
Getz.
Aye.
Lang.
Aye.
Teglash.
Aye.
All aye.
Okay, so there was nothing in the public safety or community services domains. Basically, the next meeting will be Wednesday, March 4th, and if there's nothing else, then we can go ahead and adjourn. Is there anything else anyone wanted to add?
No?
Okay, so I will call the legislative meeting adjourned at 7:34.